Hey guys. Oh, good. People are coming. I was kind of afraid it was going to be me by myself. All right. I started the recording early so I wouldn't forget. So I did talk to Jon's, I guess his assistant this morning, just to make sure that I had my timing right. So he has literally 30 minutes. So if you guys have any questions for him or anything, pop them into the chat and hopefully he'll have time to get to them at the end. Who's all read his book, Soundtracks, or any of his books? Anybody? Yeah, Ellie's reading it right now, right? Listening. I shouldn't say read, I'm listening, or I listen.
Hours, Michelle, 36 hours, the whole thing. It was the best.
So good. So good. I loved it. And I've been talking to a lot of people that have read his other book. Like he actually has written 7 books. I did not know that. And Marta told me that he worked with Dave Ramsey, right? Yeah. Awesome. Looks like he's here. Hello.
Let's do it.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Michelle?
I am doing well and so grateful that you're here. We are so excited. We have lots of, you have so many raving fans. So many of these women have read lots of your books. And
oh, awesome. That's so fun to hear. Michelle, where are you based? Where do you live?
Well, I'm in Ontario, so but we're scattered all over Canada and the US. So awesome. I of course loved your story about Canada in your book and getting that speeding ticket.
Yeah, that was again, I thought he was going to tell me about some Canadian artists. Like he's going to be like, knock, knock, we gave you Drake. That's what I thought he was going to say. Like, if you like Drake, you're welcome. And I was going to go, thank you. I love his music from A to Z. And that was not the interaction we had. So
that was not the way that went. But it made for a really good chapter in your book. So.
It did. I always tell people, like, when it comes to one of my soundtracks I use is it's going to be a success or a story. Like it's either going to be a win or I'm going to get a dope story from it. And that's how I think about life. And so a lot of times, even in the moment of the failure, I'm like, oh, this is a story. Like I'm in a story right now. And then I go, it'll help somebody else down the road too. And so it helps me reframe kind of like, oh, this doesn't feel good. That's kind of how I approach it.
That's such a great way to look at everything that happens to us, right? It's either going to be a success or a story. I love that. So on that note, I think everyone here knows you and you've written 7 books. I think I heard your 8th is on the way. And I just fell in love with the way that you simplified getting over overthinking. And
thanks.
I actually loved how you just simplified our thoughts and the questions we should ask ourselves. So I would love for you just to share, why are we these overthinking beings and where does it stem from? And just your strategies and tools that you help people with.
Sure. I mean, I think the first thing is, I think it's part of being human. I think I said in the book, overthinking and Netflix are one of the things that separates us from the animals. I remember I have 2 daughters, so I've read Little House on the Prairie. And in one of the scenes, Pa says, like, a muskrat can only build one type of home. Like, it's the same of every animal. Like, a cardinal never builds a house out of stones. Like, a cardinal never digs, a blue jay never digs a hole and lives there. Like, animals can do one thing and one thing always. They always do the same thing. Every cardinal has always built the same nest. But as humans, we have all these different freedoms, all these different decisions, all these different choices. And I think with that comes the potential to overthink and the potential to have more thoughts than a situation requires. And so what's been interesting is people have said to me, did you write the book during the pandemic? And my book cycle is longer than that. So the book was done before the pandemic. It just ended up being good, unfortunate timing. Unfortunate because who wants a pandemic? Good in the sense of everybody's overthinking. Like we asked 10,000 people if they overthink, 99.5% of people said yes. And that was before the pandemic. The pandemic was catnip for overthinking. And the way I've been saying that is right now, everything is a thing. every little thing you do in your life has extra layer of thoughts. And my example is, I met somebody a couple weeks ago and they went to shake my hand. And right before they shook it, I thought, should I refuse? Should I fist bump? Should I twist at the waist and give them an elbow? Should I shake their hand, but then immediately put my entire arm up to the elbow in a vat of hand sanitizer as if to say, excuse me, while I wash off this deadly pandemic you just tried to murder me and my grandparents with? And then I started looking around the room and I was like, are there people shaking hands here? Is this a handshaking room? What does it say about us politically? And 2 years ago, do you know what I thought, Michelle, when somebody tried to shake my hand? Nothing. I shook their hand. But now every part of your life, every person you interact with, there's all these extra layers of thought. So that, for me was, okay, what do we do with that? And my favorite thing, you're right. My favorite thing to do is simplify complex things. I consider my job, I am a handle maker. I put handles on ideas so that you can actually pick them up and take them with you into your life. We have enough ideas. There's more than enough books in my room. Like, if you ever want to be depressed, write your book at the library, because you'll think this is going to change the world. And then a dude in sweatpants at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday is like, I'm looking at it, and there's a million books. We have enough ideas. We just don't have handles on them to take them, pick them up and take them with us. And so that's what I try to do, is I try to make really complicated things like thinking and simplify it and go, here's some real tools. Here's something that's repeatable. And that's what's been fun about soundtracks, is that it's a concept that you get instantly and you'll notice right away. Oh, wait a second, I think that's a broken soundtrack. And parents have started to do it, to the point that my 2 high school daughters and I are writing a book for soundtracks for teenagers, which we're really excited about, because like I have, let me see if I can grab this. Hold on just 1 second. I think is it this box? No, is it this box? No, okay, I have a box I want to show you. Let me grab something. This is like show and tell. Okay. So for years, when I would talk to high schoolers, I would say, like, what are your voices telling you? And I have thousands and thousands, like just boxes of real voices that teenagers said, this is what I feel. This is what I tell myself. And like, most of these would break your heart. And so the idea of, can we create a book that a teenager, like, imagine if you learned how to talk to yourself when you were 14 or you were 15 or 16, like, imagine the slingshot that would be. So yeah, that's what's been fun about simplifying it. And that's kind of my process. That's my thinking process, is I find something, and here's kind of how I approach creating things, whether you're building a business, whether you're doing network marketing, whether you're writing a book, speech, whatever. I look for 3 things. The first thing is a personal connection. Am I personally connected to this? The people that are the best at network marketing have a personal connection to it, because it's going to carry you way beyond what knowing everything will. One of my favorite examples, I spoke at a big event, a big network marketing event. And this woman said, I built my team and my approach because my husband was in Afghanistan, and a lot of his troop died in Afghanistan. And I decided, I'm going to find a way to build a business that I get to bring him home and maybe even retire him. So like, you better believe on the nights when it was hard, on the mornings when it was hard, like that character. So 1, I look for a personal connection. The second thing is I look for a need. What do people really need? So the people I'm talking to, the people in my neighborhood, the conversations I'm seeing online, when I go out and speak to a corporate event, what are they asking for? And the third thing I look for is I look for a spot in the marketplace. Where am I going to fit in the marketplace? So with my book Finish, I wasn't good at finishing things, and I wanted to change that. So I had a personal connection, a personal drive to go, I want to be better at finishing. The second thing is people started to come up to me and say, hey, I liked your book Start, but I've never had a problem starting something. I can start a million things tomorrow. I can register 100 GoDaddy URLs tomorrow. How do I actually finish something? So I saw a need. And then I looked into the marketplace and realized most of our books, when it comes to goals, are written about the beginning and we ignore the end. Like when I put the word finish into Amazon, the only thing that came up was dishwasher detergent, because we over celebrate the beginning, we ignore it. And so I thought, okay, I've got that. The Venn diagram is there. And the challenge is, say you have a deep personal connection, people need it, but the marketplace is already too full. Then what you have is a cake pop. If you told me, John, hey, I'm going to do this thing called cake pops, I'd be like, oh, Michelle, I've got terrible news. We already have those. Like, by the time it's in Starbucks, you're 10 years too late. So let's say you find you have a deep passion. It's not in the marketplace. You got a spot, but nobody needs it. That's a hobby. Like, I love that you're into ferrets. Like, be into ferrets. Have 1 million ferrets. but nobody needs that. Like nobody actually asks them for that. And the other thing is, say you just define like, okay, there's a need, there's a spot in the marketplace, but you're not personally connected to it. You just created yourself a new day job. You just created something that you're not going to love. And even if it makes money, even if it's successful, you're going to stop. So that's kind of how I looked at overthinking and mindset. Was there was a need in my own life, and I changed how I thought years ago, and it really changed my life. So I had done it for about 10 years. And then I saw other people actually need it. We asked 10,000 people, 99.5% said, yes, we need this. And then I went to the marketplace and I realized there's great resources about overthinking and mindset, but a lot of them say, stop it, stop it, stop it. And my thought was, why would I ever turn off this amazing thinking machine? What if I could just feed it with good thoughts? And then a lot of them weren't funny. Like they were really serious, they're clinical. And then a lot of them didn't have steps. The problem with thinking is it goes holistic really quickly. And people say like, just love, or they'll say things like, a rose never thinks it needs to be a tulip. And you're like, yeah, because it's not a sentient being. That's not, how do I apply that to my Tuesday? Like that is some nonsense. And so I was like, okay, I think I can create an actionable, funny, simple, honest book about thinking that helps a lot of people. And that's what I tried to do with soundtracks.
And you did. I love
that. Oh, thanks. Yeah.
You did. What I loved was it was like, okay, here's 30 things that you can actually go and do right now for free. I just loved how simple it was. So you've talked, for the people that maybe haven't read or listened to soundtracks, can you explain that? Because I love how you really focus in on the broken soundtracks and how we can actually fix those. So would you mind going to that?
Totally. So soundtrack is just my thought, my word for a repetitive thought. Some people say thoughts are like leaves on a river or a cloud in the sky or a car on the highway. But for me, it's a soundtrack. And I chose that word because a soundtrack has the power to change an entire scene, often without us even noticing. So let's say they open up on a movie and it's this small little house, white picket fence, it's Prince Edward Island and it's beautiful. And all of a sudden they play an ominous song, an ominous soundtrack, it changes everything. Suddenly you go, don't go in that house, it's quiet, it's too quiet. There's a creepy clown hiding in the sewer. But what if they do the reverse? They play Vanessa Carlton's 1,000 Miles and suddenly it's a rom-com and somebody's making their way downtown. So a soundtrack has the power to change everything. And over the years, you develop a soundtrack for every relationship you have, every project you have, every boss you've ever had, every job you've ever had, your marriage, your hopes, your dreams. And so that's where the phrase came from. And what the book teaches you is to do three things. Retire your broken soundtracks. So the soundtracks that are not helping you, that are hurting you. Number two, replace them with new soundtracks. It's not enough to retire it. You want to, your brain is like, hey, let's think stuff, let's think stuff, let's think stuff. You need to replace it with a new one. And the third thing you do is you repeat it so often it becomes as automatic as the old ones. So it's retire, it's replace, and it's repeat. And so that's what the book walks through is, okay, how do I do that? And a really common question I get is, okay, well, how do I identify a broken soundtrack? Like, how do I even find one? What is that? Give me an exercise. And so I'll give you a 30-second exercise. That's the easiest thing in the world to do. So if you want to identify a broken soundtrack, write down a goal. It can be a big goal, it can be a small goal. I want to scale my team. I want to achieve such and such level. I want to have another kid. I want to start a podcast. I want to read more books. I want to move to a different part of Canada or wherever. Like, write down a goal and then listen to the first thoughts that come up. Listen to your reaction, because one of my soundtracks is every reaction is an education. Every reaction you have to a situation is trying to educate you about how you think. And so if your first thoughts are, you're too old, you don't have enough skill for that, you don't have business training, somebody's already done that, who are you to think you could do that? There might be a broken soundtrack there that you want to say, okay, I need to be deliberate about that. How do I retire that? And then it kind of starts the process of, I'm going to retire this thing, I'm going to create a new one, and then I'm going to find tangible ways to repeat it so that it actually sticks. That's kind of the process at a high level.
Yeah, I love that. I think what I learned from your book the most, and this is maybe really basic for some people, but it's actually taking the time to slow down, calm down, and get curious with yourself. I really, there was a moment in time that I was like, whoa, this is really crazy. I actually control my thoughts. Wow, isn't that amazing?
It's bonkers. Like most people don't understand that they get to choose them. They think they just show up, which is why we say things like she got carried away by her thoughts. She got lost in her thoughts. And when you discover you have the power to choose them, it blows your mind. And you're right. A lot of it is taking 10 seconds of paying attention. So I'll give you an example from my own life. I was on the Hertz rental shuttle in Denver. I just went to Denver. I spoke in Colorado Springs, drove back to Denver. I'm in the airport. I'm on the shuttle, and a guy getting on drops like the world's heaviest, loudest, like water bottle. Like it was made of Thor's hammer. Like they broke down Thor's hammer and made it into a water bottle right by me. And I'm on my phone, so I'm not paying attention. So loud, terrifies me. And I immediately go, whoa, that was not startling at all. And I pause and I'm like, I went immediately to sarcasm. Like when I'm scared, I go immediately to sarcasm versus saying, if I had said to him, dude, that was so loud, he might've gone like, right, man, I'm sorry. Like, but I immediately threw up this sarcasm shield. And if I'll pause for a second, I get to go, is that what I want? Like, is that the best? Like, is that what I'm trying to do? Like, do I use that in other situations? And again, it was a 10-second interaction. But because I've gotten into this habit and this exercise of going, thoughts don't just get to show up and run amok. I go, whoa. Are you on the guest list? Like, are you like, I think about it like a nightclub, like the VIP, like, wait a second, who'd you come with? Like, I don't even think you know that guy. You're like, no, I'm on the list. You're like, no. And so it gives me something to go, okay, I'm going to be deliberate about that. Like, wow, when I'm scared, I react in sarcasm. I wonder if I do that in other parts of my life. Spoiler alert, I do. But I get to deal with it because I've paused for a second and I've paid attention.
Yeah, I think it's such a huge thing. I mean, I know women in our business, we get overwhelmed with the business tasks, or we get overwhelmed with imposter syndrome, but we continue to let those thoughts just spin on uncontrollably. And if we would just take a moment and ask ourselves, well, is that actually true? Like, is this just, am I just scared? So I think really all of those tips that you give in your book are so great, but the one that stood out for me the most is like, just take a break, Michelle. When you feel that overwhelming feeling, you can actually get a handle on it.
You can do something.
Yeah, what other tips? I know that you have like 10 free tips that you give people on overwhelm. Can you think of any of those?
So I mean, let's go specifically about what you guys do. So one of them, when I get to talk to network marketing teams, and they're my favorite because y'all are already in motion. Sometimes I have to convince an audience to get in motion, and I have to like convince them that they should. Y'all are already in motion, or like, you know, will you keep up with us, Jon? So I love, like, I'm going to need to go do that with a big organization in October. It's my favorite thing in the world. There's a couple audiences that I love to talk to. Like real estate agents are a lot of fun because the good ones are like, let's go. Like people that are lazy are like, oh, I like houses. I've seen house flipping shows. I'll be a real estate agent. I'm like, that, dude, that is not going to work. So I love when folks that are into network marketing, let me talk to them. So one thing that I'd say specifically to you guys is there's this sense of, if I keep talking about my thing, if I keep talking about my business, if I keep whatever, I'm going to bother people. People are going to get bothered. They're going to get upset. They're going to get annoyed, whatever. And there's a few things I'd say to that specifically. And it's a soundtrack I've had to learn myself. So I am in sales now. When you have your own company, guess what? You're in sales. And I was never trained in that. Like I was in corporate marketing, but the sales team, that division was like completely different. I had no idea about it. It made me really uncomfortable. And I felt those same things. And so I said, okay, I need a new soundtrack. So I started to think through it. And I started to go, is it true that I'm bothering people? And I thought, well, I'm never bothered by the store REI. We have this outdoor store here that sells gear. And I never go in there and I'm mad at REI. I'm like, I'm so mad they sell ski coats that I like. I'm so like frustrated. I walk in and I'm like, I could really become a rock climber. Like I could really get into cave diving because they sell that. I'm like, I could do that. I'm always happy when I leave. The other dorkier one, the dorkiest hobby I have, is I love putting together big Lego cars because none of my job has steps. Like the steps to be a writer, the steps to be an author and speaker, there's no steps. A big Lego like Ferrari or Porsche has instructions. It's kind of like some people knit to turn off their brain. For me, it's like putting together a big puzzle. And so one Christmas, I got 6 Lego catalogs, and they were all the same. They just did that Taco Bell thing where they shift the ingredients, you know, like where it's like Taco Bell has like 7 ingredients and turns it into like 4,800 items. And so the Lego catalogs were all roughly the same products, but I was like, oh, we got another one, because I love that. So I wrote a new soundtrack that I'm somebody's Lego. Like if I do my job well, they don't feel like I was selling them. They feel like I was serving them. Like if I really put them and think about them and their needs and what they're doing, and I do a good job with that, I'm serving them. So that's one for me that, especially when it comes to network marketing, having a personal connection, thinking about, you know, even just, let's get real practical. If you created a list, if you just kept a list, I you know, I love writing down ideas in notebooks. I'm a paper guy. I would keep a list of the questions I get, the most common questions I get, and I would have, you have great answers for them and you have average answers. And your average answer, you can see somebody's face goes, I don't even understand what that means. But your great answer, you know. And when you get it, you go, oh, that clarifies. I just keep a list of those so that I could say, okay, when this broken soundtrack goes, you don't know everything. You could say, well, I know the 5 most common questions I get, and I have some pretty dope answers for that. Like my brother manages 15 car dealerships. And we were talking the other day about Porsche. And Porsche, one of their most popular cars is the Macan. It's like a smaller SUV. And the Porsche manager there said, hey, it's not a smaller Cayenne. They have this big SUV. And he said, it's not a smaller Cayenne. It's a larger 911. And I was like, that is dope. It's not a smaller, it's a bigger 911. Like that clarifies. And so there's parts of your business, parts of what you do where you've had a sentence that you could see the light bulb go off. And so part of your job is to collect those moments and be proud of them. And then the other thing is to remember, you're the only one who's seen all of your promotion. You're 100% of the people that see it all. You feel like everybody sees it all, but they don't. We're all so busy. And what I learned is I'll do live events. And I'm actually, because travel's all crazy right now, I'm doing 5 free ones online, which I'm excited about. I'll give you guys the link for that in a minute. But I would go to Dallas and I'd say, hey, I'm coming to Dallas. I'm coming to Dallas. And I'd feel like, I'm over promoting. It's annoying. Like I'm bothering people. And then I take a picture of that night that I was there. And the next day I'd post it on Instagram. And inevitably people would go, I wish I'd known you were here. I would have gone. And so what happens is I was trying to like please a fake person. Nobody had even yelled at me yet. I was trying to prevent somebody from going, enough about Dallas. We get it. You're going to Texas. I was pleasing somebody who wasn't going to come, somebody who probably lived in Oregon that was going to be a jerk online. And I was underserving people who lived in Dallas. So I try to, from a soundtrack sales promotion perspective, go, okay, this is for that person. This is for that person. It's not for the person. Like I always tell myself, like the barbecue restaurant doesn't care about the vegan crowd. The vegan restaurant doesn't care about meat contests. Like they shouldn't try to serve them. So for me, like you all have people, like there are people that aren't watching this right now that want to be served by you, that want to be encouraged by you, that want to be challenged by you. And the more you can lean into that and repeat it, again, like I'll give you, this is so silly, but here's one of mine right now. This is on my wall. It's a really simple soundtrack. It says, ask for more. Like, that's not sexy. Like, that's not hooky. Like if right now you're going, yeah, but you're a really tall writer who can come up with creative stuff. Like if that's what you're thinking and you're like, oh, well, like I can't write this, you could write that, ask for more. I wrote that on August 27th, 2020. So more than a year ago, because I found myself undervaluing what I was charging for. I found myself undervaluing my work and my time. And so I was like, you're not going to remember the good things by themselves. No one I've ever met, and this is true, gets better by accident. I've never met somebody that said, yeah, I was binge watching Netflix. I just looked up and I was suddenly doing burpees. I didn't even mean to do burpees. Like all of a sudden I was doing burpees. Like nobody, nobody says that. Nobody says I was scrolling Instagram. I looked up, I was reading a book about success and I got better. Like here's another soundtrack. Fear comes free, hope takes work. Fear comes free, hope takes work. Fear and negativity will find you. You have to go look for positivity. Like you have to go work on that. So for me, putting in the work, it might seem silly. It might seem like, why do you need a note? I wish I was strong enough that I didn't need notes. Whatever. I need some notes. I put this one up there. I've probably seen it 1,000 times in the last year. So now, like, even when I'm charging stuff, I'll go, wait a second. Did I ask for the right amount? Did I do that? So those are some of the things for me, especially about growing a business, that I think through. And I told you I'd give you the link. So let me keep that promise. Here's the link. It's just acuff.me/challenge. We're doing 5 1-hour lessons. And so here's another example of something I did. So I was like, I bet, let me see if I can find the documents. This is like family talk, even though we've only done one of these together. So just excuse that I'm shifting through paper. So like I wrote down, was like, I bet that a lot of people, because I got an email from a friend who was like, I went to a free webinar and it was 98% sales and 2% content. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a bad experience. How can I speak directly to that? So when you hear pushback, figure that out. One of the best things you can do in network marketing is identify pushback and have a solution for it. I love, in speeches, I do that all the time. Removing your objection before you've raised it creates trust. It creates accountability. Like one of mine, in the finished research, we found that if you make your goal fun, you're more likely to succeed at it. You raise your satisfaction and your performance levels. So fun matters. So I know that when I'm in a speech, though, everybody in the audience, as soon as I say fun matters, thinks of the most unfun thing they have to do at work. And they start arguing with me from the seat. They're like, oh, no, but he doesn't know I have to do budgets. Budgets suck. Like he doesn't know. And so I immediately go, but let's be honest. And I have a slide that says kale isn't fun. And some of y'all love kale. That's fine. I use it as a joke. I say kale tastes like wet sadness. Always gets kind of a laugh because wet sadness is a weird phrase. But that tells them like, no, I've thought ahead. So like, as you hear objections, you think about those. So with the content, this is day 1. So I wrote out, it's about 5,000 words. And so I wrote out and I took a picture, I laid it all on the floor and said, here's where there's sales stuff. And so like, when you look at it, I highlighted, I just said like, okay, do you see any blue there? Do you see any blue there? Do you see any, oh wait, there's blue right there. Do you see any blue there? Do you see any like, and I said, this is where I'm going to try to sell you something. And so people were like, oh, okay. 1, thanks for saying that. 2, there's a lot of content. So that's what I try to do is I try to go, how can I identify somebody's real need? Where's a soundtrack? How do I get creative with it? How do I position myself differently than everybody else who's doing it? And let me say that like network marketing is barely starting. Like one of the common broken soundtracks I hear is, oh, it's too late. Like there's too many people in it. There's too many, like that's not true for a second. There's so, I used to think that with like, if somebody I knew sold 1 million books, I'd be like, oh, there's no room for me. 1 million, 1 million of 300 million people that just in my country that doesn't mean there's not other people for me. Like, and people buy multiple books. And like, if I do my job well, like there's plenty of room. So never, if you ever bump into the soundtrack, like it's too late, or I should have gotten a head start or what, like there's so much time for network marketing. Like you're just barely beginning.
Totally agree. I didn't know this was going to take a network marketing turn, and
I love network marketing.
So good.
Yeah. Well, and that's what you guys do. So like, it sucks if I show up and I give you the same ideas that I would give, an HVAC conference. You guys would be like, this feels like stock photography. Like nobody likes a stock. Like if you give the network marketing spiel to everyone the same way, that's stock photography, and nobody likes that. They feel like a number versus you sharing something you care about. So yeah, so the challenge, it starts September 20th, 5 days. I'm going to teach for an hour each day. And it's about how do you maximize your goals for the rest of the year? Because September, I say there's 2 slingshot months, January and September. January because New Year's resolutions, September because of back to school. You always want to take advantage of cultural momentum where people are naturally talking about, okay, there's new stuff, we're pushing in the same direction. And September is that. And often as parents, somebody said this to me once, they said, we tell our kids to be braver than we're being. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, we take them to soccer practices they've never been to. We drop them up and go, there's a team. You've never met any of those people. You've never played this sport. Go do this thing, while we create the safest lives possible. And we'll go, who's going to be at that dinner? Well, I know somebody at that dinner. I don't know if I really like that husband at that dinner. Like, we are so safety driven. And then we make our kids be so brave and go, no, just run cross country. Like, do a sport you've never like. And so it's a chance for us in September to go, okay, let's be brave. There'll be like 10,000 people in it, which is super fun. But yeah, you should do it, if only to see how I'm doing what I do. Like always, like when people go, I wish I could learn, I'm like, you have the world's greatest free encyclopedia. like everyone online is trying to give you a little bit of a tidbit and go, here's how I do things. Here's what. So I love it. I could do this for like 10 hours.
Yeah. Thank you. I love that we make our kids do things that we would never do. That is so.
Yeah, that'll punch you in this. That is a step on the toes moment.
That was
right?
a gut punch there. Thanks.
Yeah. Ugh.
So good. Anyways, I know that you have just half an hour and we are there, and we're just so appreciative of you coming today and sharing with us. I love your humor. You just make a subject that sometimes is tough for us to talk about really, really funny, and gave, again,
Well, thanks.
such tangible tips to take come So
when you guys are back live, let me know. Like when you guys,
you need to come to our conference for
when
sure.
When is y'all's conference? When do you guys usually do them?
Summer, June, July. Yeah.
Was the last one virtual?
Yes. Yeah.
Year,
where is it supposed to be this year? Now I forget. St. Louis? No, St. Louis. Yes.
That's a drive for me. St. Louis. If you go and your kids come, go to the City Museum. It's unbelievable. City Museum. That's my St. Louis. It's the best. That's my one kid recommendation in St. Louis. But yeah, I like I said, I'm talking to a big network marketing organization. I think there's going to be 3,000 people there in like a month. So if they ever say like, who should we have Jon speak? Jon Acuff.
Absolutely.
Unexpectedly dropped 20 minutes of network marketing specific information about how much I geek out about it. So hear me say 100% honestly, I love what you guys do. I think it's one of the best ways to build a side hustle into a business and change your entire life. And like the big thing is once you experience it, you're like, why doesn't everybody do this? Like once you get you start to see things grow, you're like, wait a second, like this feels like a secret more people need to know about. So I'm so glad that you guys are doing it together. Michelle, thanks for letting me talk to your team. I know you care a ton about them, and it's not like you open the door to 1,000 people because who knows what wacky person is going to come on. And then last thing I'd say, Danielle Melanson, it was fun to watch your hair transform. It was fun to watch you go from curlers to like, I'm about to be doing my day. So you were like, I don't care. I'm in a robe. I got curlers. And then as the day progressed, you were like, here we go. So I just want you to know out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, I'm going to try to drop some truth, but Danielle is really putting herself together for a big day. Big day. I don't know, maybe date night. A lot of things on the agenda. So Friday night, Danielle is ready to go. So guys, thank you so much. I'm going to bounce. I never get to say that on a Zoom call. So that was now you know it's unique because I've never said that exact phrase on a Zoom call. Acuff.me/challenge. I expect to see all of y'all. See you guys.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Oh my gosh, I am in.
Oh my God, thank you for doing this for us. That was
amazing.
Yeah.
I, for one, was watching your hair transform. It was amazing. Those rollers, you got it going on.
I have to tell you, so when you host a call and somebody doesn't have their screen on, it doesn't look like as many people are there.
Yeah, totally.
And